This is LING 270, Language, Technology, and Society, Module 3, Decipherment. In this lesson, we'll be concluding our module. So in this module, we talked about decipherment, which is the process of discovering a meaning of a text which is written in an obscure language or script. So remember that we talked about that there were some important prerequisites which we need before we begin a process of decipherment to uncover the meaning of an ancient writing system. Firstly, we need to make sure that we're deciphering based on genuine artifacts and not hoaxes, that we have a sufficient quantity of artifacts and text to make it possible for there to be a decipherment. We need to make a good guess about the writing direction. We need to know the domain of the document, what the document might be talking about, and also what the underlying language of the document is. Remember that writing systems are always representations of language-specific information in some way. So this is another very important prerequisite. We also talked about how decipherments can get started. So a lot of our decipherments are entirely phonetic symbols. So we can't figure out what a symbol means by what it looks like. It's not ideographic. Phonetic symbols are something that are very abstract, so they're kind of more difficult to decipher. But it is still possible to do phonetic decipherments. One strategy we can use is to use proper names, because proper names tend to be the same in multiple languages, and sometimes in the case of hieroglyphics, they can be specially highlighted in the text, and it makes them very easy to find. Another thing that we could do is apply the Rebus and Acroponic principles, but it's important to note with these that these principles will only work if our underlying assumption of the language is correct, because the Rebus and Acroponic principles, they're both ways of representing language information with symbols. And also another thing that might help is to look at similar writing systems. Sometimes writing systems are based off of older ones, and we can use that evidence to begin a decipherment. But sometimes also symbols just might be similar to each other by coincidence. So this strategy doesn't always work. So that's important to remember as well. We talked about the process of structural and distributional analysis. So that's where we use more statistical analysis of a symbol system. So finding out how frequent are the different symbols and what symbols tend to co-occur with each other, and how do those symbols correspond to the frequencies that we know about the sounds of the language and the words of the language. So using that kind of information was helpful for deciphering linear B, for example. We also talked about the important concept of pseudo-decipherment. So sometimes we can make a set of hypotheses which seem fairly well, but they might only make sense for the artifacts that we're looking at, and they might not be able to apply to other artifacts. So if that is the case, if it can't apply to other artifacts, we call this situation a pseudo-decipherment. And a pseudo-decipherment is something which cannot be independently verified. It is only independent verification which can confirm the quality of a decipherment. So remember that we talked about that this process can be done in two ways. We could have multiple groups of people try to decipher a text independently and then compare their results with each other, or to look at one set of artifacts, develop a decipherment for that, and then apply it to artifacts which they have not seen before. So this process of independent verification is important to actually determine if this is the true decipherment. We talked about how helpful bilingual and multilingual texts can be, such as the Rosetta Stone. They can make a decipherment occur much faster. Now, they're very helpful, but they are not necessary for a decipherment. So in the example decipherments, we talked about, Linear B and Old Persian were deciphered without any kind of bilingual text. They were done just by good hypotheses and structural analysis. And also, there are some scripts too, which, despite a great amount of work, have not been deciphered and may not even be decipherable because they may not satisfy the prerequisites which we talked about. So these include the linear A ancestor of the linear B script, the symbol system of the Indus Valley, and also the Phaistos disk, which may actually be a hoax. So so it might be the case that there are some scripts which just can't be deciphered.